What up, gamers? We are back with some more modern action. This time we've got some Bant Living End versus Eldrazi Tron. I don't know, I'm trying to think of a better name to call this. It's basically just an Eldrazi or a colorless Tron. I still want to call it, Eldrazi Tron. We're already seeing the first bit of Eldrazi with Devourer of Destiny, but that's like a staple in like every basically Eldrazi list at this point in time. But the main difference is, you do run some of the Tron lands that are in there. I mean, at this point in time, everybody knows that most of the lands that are run are no longer Tron lands. It's all of the, new-fangled, fancy Eldrazi lands. But on the other side, we've got a Street Wraith. No real indication yet that it is Living End, but that should be one of those, you're, pinging on the radar here to kind of get that indication of, okay, this is either a Death Shadow list or a Living End list. We're not sure which one yet, so we need some more information to kind of help lock it in. So if you're not familiar with the Living End, there's a couple lists running around. Basically, there's two schools of thought with it. You can do Sultai, and you're just you've got Overlord of the Bailmark, and you're kind of very efficient and focused on one specific combo and getting your creatures into the graveyard as fast as possible and being able to rely on Overlord of the Bailmark to just kind of do a lot and then still have access to, a cascaded Living End off of a Shardless agent. You do not get access to Ardent Plea. If you're going the Bant version, you do have a little bit more flexibility in, I guess, the way that you get to the same result, right? You have double access and increasing your chances of being able to find a Living End in a way by having, 8 copies of Cascade effects instead of just the 4 that was, previously the kind of way to go if you were going to Sultai. So as of right now, the breeding pool is fetched up. Doing the Sultai compared to the Bant, again, they're both 3-color decks, but one really is just sort of splashing black for things like Overlord of the Bailmark and things like that, where the Bant Living End is splashing white to get Ardent Plea. That's kind of the main separation between those two schools of thought. I've been a big fan of the Sultai version over the Bant. I do have Ardent Pleas from back in the old school Living End days, but I am currently building Sultai Living End. I played it on MTGO. There's some of those VODs up if you guys want to check out as we were learning the deck, and I just had a ton of fun learning the deck. So I decided, you know what, I'll slowly pick up the pieces. Overlord of the Bailmark, it pulls double duty of a card that I would need whether I'm playing that or the other deck that I'm building, which is the Esper Blink deck. So both those decks relying on that Overlord of the Bailmark. But on the other side of things, the Eldrazi Tron, the Trons lists are ones that I have, I've got old school Tron still together, and I keep debating about, okay, one of these days I do need to build a big mana deck like this instead of just my blue draw go decks, which how much I love to play. Which there is going to be another streamer event coming up in August for people if you want to check out some more modern action. I'll be playing or trying to play. I got to make sure my schedule works out for it, but hopefully we're going to sign up and play in another one of those streamer events there. But let's go in and focus in on this match here. We got Eldrazi Tron deploying a Thought-Knot Seer here. So really great disruption card. Some lists are running it or not, depending on how heavily you're relying on the Eldrazi. But you can see the Glaring Flesh Rakers in this list, the Thought-Knot Seer. It's kind of like taking pieces from the old school Eldrazi Tron list, and they have adjusted a bit. But we see a pitching of a blue card here to be able to drop down a subtlety and say, would you like to put that on the top or the bottom? Basically going to set ourselves up. That's one of the fun parts of doing the Bant Living End is you get access to, 4 subtleties, 4 endurances, and Chalice of the Void is going to get deployed here, which is a huge shutdown card, basically saying, hey, Chalice for 0, you can't cast your Living End. Luckily, Beseiju is in there to be able to answer those types of effects. So that is one of the other things to think about is this is a very difficult matchup for the Bant Living End player. With main board Chalice of the Voids, not all lists are running them. All right, whether you're running against an Eldrazi list or a Tron list. But you can see, yeah, it is the kind of, we've got access to swamps, we've got things like dismembers and other type of effects there to kind of help us out. But, you know, the biggest, scariest thing is that Chalice of the Void that we know is there. Now, our assumption is there's probably at least 2 main board. You know, that's kind of like, if you're going to run one, you never run just one, right? You might have one extra in your sideboard, but you should, like, if you're on that route, you're probably running like 2 main board, and then you might have one in the sideboard because, you know, Tron lists or colorless lists like this, the big mana versions, are toolbox lists. They rely on the Karn to be able to help tutor up and get a artifact from your sideboard there. But we'll see if that does come into play here. But we do see, you know, attempting to do some shenanigans over here with our Bant Living End adventures, but it's setting up. We're doing some setup turns still trying to gather up enough to be able to do that. But if you guys are not yet subscribed or following the channel, consider doing so. We do have gameplay content and coverage every Monday and Thursday, as well as our sprinkling of content out on the weekends, Saturdays, usually when we're going to be posting up an MTGO video, as well as other bonus content that we've got. We're starting to sprinkle in, of course, some short form content. So you can check out all that kind of stuff. But, you know, if you want to see these specific deck lists, of course, those are available on our Mox field. You do have access to that down below in the little description, along with all of our socials and all that stuff. So you want to check out more of that and all the other stuff that we've got going on, you can. But we're getting into kind of the cycle adventures here. Eagles of the North going to be used here. So part of this is, you know, we have to run X number of basics, and usually you might get away with like, I'll run like 1, maybe 2 basics, but it also depends on what your meta looks like. Sometimes you have to adjust your mana base and your deck, your sideboard, even the main board slightly, to better accommodate what your local scene looks like. And in our case, if there's a lot of Blood Moon type effects that are running around, right, usually we get some Harbinger of the Seas and things like that. But even more so, we're starting to see some Magus of the Moons and some other type effects, especially in some of our Hardened Scales lists. But here we go. Cascade of the Shardless Agent. Of course, you see Shardless Agent on the battlefield. He's not technically on the battlefield yet, but we get a great little view of what is in this list here. But we're going to attempt to cast a Living End, it looks like. And, oh, that's the other reason why this is such a tough matchup. Kozilek's Command is going to be our response to this, and that means that we got to just start stripping away all of those creatures that we're going to try to come back here. So all the big scary ones are no more. So you can be able to, yeah, get rid of those 4 creatures. X equals 4. And we're going to make 4 Scions here. Or Eldrazi spawns. Scion spawns. I think the Scions were 1/1s. And the spawns are 0/1s. I don't know. Someone fact check me. In this case, it's a ditto, so it doesn't even matter. But that's the kind of Living End stuff. Now, with Living End there on the stack, we don't have to necessarily, but we do have another response before Living End goes off. We're going to be able to discard this Fairy Macabre, exile those 2 cards, so at least we have something coming back. Living End will resolve, get rid of all those spawns, and now we've got a Fairy Macabre. So at least we have a thing. 2 things, really, if you count the Shardless Agent. But there was that little bit of subtlety trick that we maybe could have done if we, you know, bounce our Shardless Agent back to hand, do different things. Like, there's a lot of cool nuanced lines within the Bant Living End, or just Living End in general. So, but it is tough. Like, in a world of consigned memories and graveyard hate, it's a tough position to be going, I'm going to play a deck that cares about triggers and cares about my graveyard. But speaking of triggers, we've got Devourer of Destiny coming out, exiling away that Fairy Macabre, and Flesh Rakers here, so we will be able to start doing a little bit of shredding of that flesh and be able to kind of ping our opponent down, make another spawn here. And this is why this list is very good at what it does, is it's, you know, very reliant on just sort of like setting up and closing the game with Flesh Rakers and just sort of like, here's all this shredding damage. But look at those Tron lands. What do y'all think about the Tron lands with the panoramic stuff? We did our post about the Hardened Scales Maybe we'll start doing that and see what people like about the Tron lands. Which Tron lands do y'all like? But their Ardent Plea is going to come out. We're going to try to just reset the board here. That's what that means. Yeah, crack the Mind Stone, draw a card. Yeah, this Tron list looking very fancy, very foiled out here. Also, I love the breeding pool choice for our Bant Living End player. Of course, at this point in time with the video release, Edge of Eternity pre-release has come and gone. Now we're getting into, of course, the release of the set itself and some more cool galaxy foiling or galaxy style foiling. Not quite the Infinity versions of them, but still very cool art for a lot of them, and some more Shocklands getting added back into the mix here. So, you know, always if you don't have your Shocklands yet, is the perfect time to start picking up at least the ones from Edge of Eternity, because, you know, the price of them are going to go down with the big reprint. They're going to be standard legal. People are going to be wanting to pick them up. This is the time to do it. You can even wait about a month or so after the set if you can help it, right? Try to save up. Make sure you get your play sets of them. Like, Shocklands and Fetchlands are 100% worth picking up. And when people are asking about, you know, I want to get into Modern, what, you know, where should I prioritize? First thing is, you know, pick a deck you like. What sort of style do you want to play? Especially if you're coming from other formats. You're like, oh, I'm a limited player. I'm a commander player. I want to try to, you know, learn the 60 card format. Well, this is a good way to do it, is find a style that you like. Here we're seeing the toolboxy action of Karn, Glaring Freshraker, and then there is our lovely little liquid metal coating gonna pop out as well. So Karn is slightly off camera here. Again, we're still adjusting our camera size. This is for things, but this will be a way to kind of shut down our opponent's mana bases for the time being here. So, but yeah, what we were talking about is find a deck that you like, but once you figure out the deck that you like, an easy way to go about it is go, you know, I'll pick up the land base for it. Especially if you go, you know, my land base is something that can pivot between multiple decks that are similar styles. Then you can go, okay, the other pieces might not be as expensive, depending on what deck you want to play, right? There is always going to be an expensive card in every deck, whether you're playing Commander, Standard, Modern, it doesn't matter, right? But the mana base is something that translates across the board. But look at all these. This is the stuff that you love to see happen with, you know, a Living End player, of like, okay, I'm going to do a bunch of stuff in one turn, right? I'm going to cycle this, go forest cycling. I'm cycling this Street Wraith. I'm setting myself up for another big turn. We're still building for it, though, especially with that liquid metal coating causing problems. And if that Karn sticks around with liquid metal coating, that means those lands are going to start getting popped. So that will become a big issue, because, of course, you can activate liquid metal coating, turning a land into an artifact, and then you use Karn's uptick ability and plus, and make sure that you put that land as a creature. It is a 0/0 and will immediately die. You know, just those little fun things that you get to do with this sort of toolboxy deck. And a big reason why I like playing, you know, Tron decks when I get the chance to, is just that toolbox mentality of like, oh yeah, I played a lot of the chord-based decks back in the day, like Kiki chords and you know, things like that, and those like post-birthing pod decks, and to really kind of mess around and do some creature-based toolbox, but having an artifact-based toolbox deck is awesome. Let's see. Oh, that's a problem. Chalice of the Void. Now, this is another thing. A lot of players are running Force of Vigors and things like that in their sideboard because how much graveyard hate exists. But in this case, you really need it just to get through these chalices. So Chalice number 2 out on the board here. Chalice on 0/2 to make sure we can kind of lock up the board and prevent, prevent the actual Living End from being cast. Oh, and there, yeah, says, hey, I'm gonna kill you here. I'm walking ballista for 6, and then I'll just shoot you. Pew, 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 pew. Pew, pew, pew. Walking ballista bullets. All right, going into game number 2 here. We again don't show much of the sideboard every so often. We just had our last video on Thursday that we kept in a little bit of the audio, of the fun little banter from our players. I like doing that from time to time, but most of the time we cut it out because there's a lot of dead time in there, and back when we used to do the live stream of this content, we would be able to sit here and talk and have those conversations and go over and be like, oh yeah, they're probably bringing in graveyard hate, so the Living End player is probably going to bring in this specific artifact and enchantment removal just to try to deal with the graveyard hate, and then it's like this little back and forth ebb and flow. How much do you reduce your power from your initial list and your game plan to kind of fight what your opponent's doing without diluting too much? It's like this nice little fun brain teaser that both players have to kind of go through in the sideboard adventures. And that's the thing, it's like I always like to say is it's a skill that takes a lot of practice, and sometimes it's easier than others. I've been enjoying playing my Lantern Control list, and a lot of times the easiest thing is going, I know what to take out, I just shave on Lantern pieces and just kind of go heavier into an affinity style of play. This time around, these players don't really have that luxury, but they still know what they're trying to go for. But a Chalice on 0 to start out the game, that is not where you want to be at. Hoping for some Force of Vigors, hoping for some, Beseiju. All right, the fetch. Go find us a breeding pool here. I wonder, that's the other thing too, it's like you do want some number of surveil lands in the Living End list, because getting access to looking at the top and potentially just pitching a big dumb dude works out great. But you also want to be able to be as fast and efficient as possible to be able to be like, okay, turn 3, I can just cast my Ardent Plea, I can just cast my Shardless Agent and just go and just immediately have like 4 creatures on the battlefield and just close the game out in like 2 turns, right? That's the fun explosive power that Living End has, but it is not oppressive in the sense that it is easy to hate it out with a lot of graveyard hate, with consigns to memory going, oh, you're going to cascade, I'm going to counter that trigger, and then you're just left and going, well, that was fun. Guess I'll just sit here and hope that I can bounce this creature back or get another one later on. Now, another fun thing too is I am a big fan of some super, I wouldn't say super secret tech. It's inevitable betrayal, all right, where you get to sit here and steal creatures from your opponent, work out really well against like a Eldrazi list because they're usually running some big scary dumb dudes. But we don't see any of that right now. Right now, we're still in the cycling, we're building phase here. And look at that snow-covered waste, too. Yeah, I like this. So you got snow-covered waste, you got some swamps in here. It's got a little bit of everything. The Mind Stones help to ramp. It is kind of a bit... I think that's smart to run more... Oh, there's the Beseiju, too. All right, cool. Let's get rid of that Chalice. Get that swamp off of there. Yeah, I wonder how many Beseijus are the correct number to run. Like, are some people running like the 1-in-1 style? Are you just running 2 main board? Like, those are those little nuanced things that are always really interesting to see as players try to, work through and figure out what is the best kind of most efficient way to play certain lists. I mean, I'm a big fan of having lists that run a lot of flex spots, so I can be able to, as I kind of work through it, adjust things. Ooh, endurance. Okay, so I don't know. All right, so let's talk about this line here. The plan is to just get more creatures into the yard, right? So in order to get more creatures in a graveyard, we gotta evoke out our endurance. We have a shortlist agent in hand. We're going to do another one. But it's like, I also am wondering, I don't know, is it better to wait? Probably not, though. I guess you just want to get as many threats out as possible, huh? Let's see. Endurance, our Aven. Now we got some threats. Yeah, I guess, like, otherwise we're waiting another turn and there's another potential for another chalice to come out. So this way we are at least being like, okay, you know, that's 9 damage next turn. Assuming there's no creatures in the way. If there are, you know, send the bird across. All right, let's see. Grip full of cards for Eldrazi player. Essentially have access to 4 mana here. Probably have another land, we would assume at this point in time. Don't know if it's going to be... Maybe that's the debate too, is like which land we're playing and how we're doing it. But okay, yeah. So we do set ourselves up. Thought-Knot Seer. So we did pitch. So we've got 2 extra manas off of that Ugin Adventures over there. Okay. 2 Ardent Pleas and a... What is that? Command? Kadem? What the heck's that? That big blue spell that costs a bunch of mana. Commandeer. Alright. So now there's a blocker. Alright, we're going with the Ardent Plea. I don't mind this. Like, we don't have to cast a Living End. Oh, okay. So forces of negation, force of vigor. We got to see a bit of the sideboard stuff. So, oh, Inevitable Betrayal.
Oh, I'm going to cast it. I forgot I put this card in here. I'm going to attempt to cast Inevitable Betrayal.
Inevitable Betrayal. So it's Bribery, if you guys remember that card. Normally it costs 5 mana for Bribery, but this case it's cost 0, or you can suspend it for 3 mana. Suspends for 3 turns. I love this card. It's so cool. It's such a fun... I've always wanted to do more with it, but I have it in the sideboard of my list. I played it in the sideboard on MTGO. Like, I have 2 in the sideboard of mine. I think it's sweet. Because you're going to be in these situations against, like, an Eldrazi list where you're like, okay, what big, scary Eldrazi can I take? I mean, so, like, Devourer of Destiny, not that great, because you can't... I mean, it's fine. It prevents them from having 1 extra copy, but it's just like, you know, it's 5/5 or whatever, 6/6, 6/6. Now that is a card to steal. Sire of the 7 Deaths. 7/7, first strike, vigilance, menace, trample, reach, lifelink, ward, pay 7 life. 7/7 for 7. Has 7 keywords. Like, it's just like design masterpiece right there. Annoying to deal with, but at least that's a good start of things. So move to combat. Here is a 4/5 coming across. I like that because our Aven is 4/4, so that at least prevents the Thought-Knot Seer from actually swinging in. Oh, okay. So all is dust is what is hidden underneath there. All right, we got a Karn coming out. Karn, great creator here, and we're doing our Toolboxy adventures. Ooh, that's going to be annoying to deal with. Looked like we were picking up an ensnaring bridge there. So that is one of the nice things, again, of the toolbox, is you find an artifact for the specific situation. I'm going to reach into my toolbox, and which tool do I need today? Oh, I need this way to drag the game out and prevent myself from being attacked a bunch. Perfect. That's what this ensnaring bridge is for.
But I also have fallen fountain. Like, I'm debating. Maybe I'll put it back.
All right. So at least the ensnaring bridge isn't out yet. So that means that we get to try to push for damage. Yeah, so Sire's going to come across and our 4/4 Aven. So big pushes coming, and it looks like we're just going to get rid of Karn. We don't want to deal with any more toolboxy stuff. Yeah, there's the life total swap. So we, of course, flew over, so we make sure we can kill Karn. And then the 7 damage is going to be swinging its way over. It does have the lifelink, so we do see a life total swap here. So, yeah, sadly, right off the top of the screen, we do have our Sire. But, you know, we have since gotten more stuff to make the camera stuff a little bit easier. We can zoom out a little bit more. So, you know, we'll start seeing some changes to that in the next coming weeks as we're getting through our backlog of older content, but also just recording new stuff with the new things. So you'll see kind of a sprinkling and mix in of different things. There'll be a couple more that are going to be kind of lower to the ground like this, but that's okay. That's part of, you know, we still get to sit here and talk through it and let you all know what all is happening on the screen and what's going on in the match. All right, back in the tank. I mean, we know we have the ensnaring bridge, right? It's like, do we push for damage and just swing 4? Or do we keep our blocker back in case things get crazy and our, you know, ensnaring bridge gets blown up? But actually, we have something even better to go for here. Here's an Ugin, Eye of Storm. So cast trigger, we're going to exile one of those colored permanents. And then you can see that sign of 7 deadly sins over there. It's coming out. There's the bridge. Yeah, look at that foiling. Yeah, sweet. Very sweet. So Ugin, another cast trigger when we've cast a colorless spell, which is Ensnaring Bridge. And we got to uptick our Ugin to set ourselves up with 3 extra mana. So that is great. All right, some forest cycling. Trying to set ourselves up. Ensnaring Bridge is a problem. Ensnaring Bridge is a bit of a problem. So, you know, one of the things that not all lists run, but, you know, the Living End lists like to have access to are ways to destroy artifacts and enchantments. You know, Force of Vigor is one of those. There's a couple other cool tools. I don't know if this list is running it, but that Foundation Breaker, it's got Evoke for 2. When it enters, you could destroy an artifact or an enchantment. So like that's a solid card. All right, let's do some more Ardent Plean. Okay, another Inevitable Betrayal here. All right, what else do we have? I think there was only one Scion, though, so that does, you know, that is one thing to kind of keep in mind, that it's not going to be anything else. Maybe a Devourer here. Go that route. Says, yeah, let's just cast it. All right, what else can we grab? Let's take a look. Yeah, probably. I mean, some lists, again, some lists that are Tron lists still run like a one of Ulamog or, you know, an Emrakul or, you know, the Promised End or something like that. So there are some lists that run it. So, like, in these cases, that would be huge, but we don't see that at the moment. Oh, we do a Thought Knot Seer. Okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I'll let you shuffle your deck. Once you make those cards.
Yeah, I like that. I like the Thought Knot Seer. That's sweet.
Put on some Collins creatures. Don't worry about it. They look pretty nice. They look great.
I like that art for that Scion, too. All right, so how are we going to get out of this? We're going to be digging and looking for, you know, force of vigor. We're going to be looking for, you know, other ways to kind of deal with our opponent's artifacts and enchantments. But Ugin going to be able to help us gain some life, draw a card. And we're basically building up towards a, you know, Eldrazi win at this point. Like, we've locked our Bant player out, and we're building closer and closer towards an Ugin ultimate. And once that, like, we've seen it on camera, I was playing a, you know, what was I playing? Is it Twin? And I was just like, yep, I'm going to die to this. Definitely feels like, you know, a runaway train that's just barreling towards you, and you're like, I see it. I know I need to move out of the way, but all the things that I'm doing right now is like, oh, I tripped over my shoelace. Oh, you know, like, it's like you're just gonna be waiting as it's barreling down on you, because it's like this ensnaring bridge is preventing you from doing the things that you want to do. So, okay. I like this. We're seeing this card show up more and more here. It works out very well in the sense that, like, you know, your opponent can't activate their Planeswalker's ability. That's part of why people are seeing it more. Also, the ability of artifacts, right? Activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, and Planeswalkers can't be activated. I need to pick up a couple more. I think I only have one right now that I opened in the set. Like, I think I got a couple of packs from it, maybe one of them fat packs or something. What are they called? Bundles now. So, oh, that'll do it. Brain, trigger. We're going to be getting rid of that because we cast a color spell. Stone Brain. Ah, man. Pay 2, name a card, and strip it out of our opponent's stuff. All right, Stone Brain, and let's take a look. What are we naming? Force of Vigor. All right, so now we're really locking our opponent out. We're setting ourselves up to really just say, no, you may not. You're not going to get access to the things that you want. And we got to now go look through their library. So we know they're still Beseiju. So that is an out that they have. Oh, they had 3 in their sideboard. Oh, that's really good. That is really good. Okay. All right. So now what? Now how do we get out of this? All right. Looks like passing after that. We're setting ourselves up to basically just be like, all right, can we get this Ugin ultimated here? Ultimated? Does that work? Who knows? Tell me if I'm wrong. How to say that. Anyway, the goal is set ourselves up. The ensnaring bridge, putting in work. Ooh, yep, and we'll just keep getting rid of stuff. I mean, the Scion here, like the... Oh, okay. And then a Force. Ultimate Ugin. There we go. All right. So, of course, we had our trigger, but now we're in the ultimate. So, -11, search your library for any number of colorless non-land cards. Exile them, then shuffle. Until the end of your turn, you may cast those cards without paying their mana cost. So you just go, I'm going to find the best things that are in my deck. All of them. I'm going to find all the best things. And now I'm just going to go one by one, and I'm going to play them. Boop, boop, boop. And you might be going, okay, well, how are they going to win? Because Ensnaring Bridge is there. Well, you'll see. Just wait. We're getting there. We're building up to it. Some people already know. You can kind of see a hint on the exile pile there. All right. Gathering up all the cards. We're ready for the reveal. Here is our pile. Here's all my stuff. That's my new hand, essentially, or my exile pile of cards that I get to cast. So, you know, be careful not to mix it up with your hand or anything like that. But, you know, we're going to just go through and you'll see. Would you like to cut the remainder of our library that's just lands? There's a couple other things in there too, but, you know, Mind Stones and whatnot. But, all right, here we go. Oh, players are talking about Trickbind. I love Trickbind. All right, card number 1. Glaring Fleshraker. That's how we're going to win it. Don't need to attack if you just start spamming Glaring Fleshrakers down. So, triggers, we're going to drain. Now there's 2, so every other spell that we're playing from now on, you know, release whenever another creature enters, we're going to drain our opponent or deal 2 damage to our opponent. So it's like, I got another Fleshraker in here if you want to see that too. It's like, no, you got it. You really do. Like, I'm going to start casting all of these spells. Ping, 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 ping. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. Boom, 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 boom. Easy. Well, maybe not as easy. We had to jump through a lot of hoops to get there, but that does let us see a little bit of the sideboard stuff that players brought in. You know, the flute got brought in. We got to at least tutor up the ensnaring bridge there, so not too bad. We got to see a little bit of the kind of action, but real tough for this. Really is one of the toughest matchups for the Living End player because of so many exile effects, because the Chalice on 0, like, there was a lot to have to fight through and work through to get through. And not all Eldrazi lists are running Chalice anymore. So, like, it just so happens to be our LGS happens to have the big counter for the Living End stuff. Both decks are sweet. I'm a fan of both of them. We'll probably be picking up more pieces for both of them over the next coming weeks, and especially when I'll be going to Atlanta in the fall and all the vendors and stuff like that. But that's going to do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed all the fun action here, but that'll do it for us. Thanks for tuning and watching, everyone, and I'll see you all next game.